Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the official podcast for A Step Ahead Adoption Services. This is Dr. Andy Benanti, and we're thankful to have Valerie Marble back with us, the owner of A Step Ahead Adoption Services. Valerie and I have partnered together to deliver these podcasts to you. As an owner, Valerie and her husband, Bryce, have been blessed by adoption not one, not two, but three times. And she was a past client of A Step Ahead Adoption and has experienced many of the trials and tribulations adoption has to offer. Valerie's mission is to make all families who work with A Step Ahead Adoption Services feel supported every step of the way, from the beginning stages of their adoption to finalization. Valerie's past experiences give her a very unique perspective to offer all her clients, and she is an amazing adoption coach. With our second daughter, our family used Valerie, and couldn't be more thrilled because here we have our little beautiful daughter. So let's lean into her expertise and learn some of the nuances between adoption agencies and consulting companies. So, Valerie, what inspired you to step into the owner role of A Step Ahead Adoptions rather than continuing to serve as a coach?
Yeah. Thank you for that very kind introduction. And, as always, it was amazing to work with you and your husband as well. And yeah, just thank you for that introduction. Kind of to get right to it here. The whole ownership role honestly kind of came out of the blue. Maybe I had been manifesting it for quite some time, but it was still a surprise. After being adoptive parents times two at that point, it was clear to my husband and I that adoption would forever be a huge part of our lives. And we wanted to plant ourselves somewhere in that world, but we just didn't know where exactly. We did have conversations of the hope to either potentially start up our own company similar to ASA or achieve the ultimate dream of being owners of ASA, but we kind of thought it was a pipe dream or, maybe something that would come 10 years down the road, not in the coming years. I'm a firm believer that you make decisions in life based on a bigger picture that isn't clear at that time. So every decision in building our family and decisions that I had recently made in my healthcare career were all leading up to the moment I was presented with the offer of becoming the owner of ASA. We are approaching the 1-year mark of when ASA changed hands. And I am so proud of all we have accomplished in just 1 year. We have brought so many new educational resources to the table and have worked to give ASA a fresh new look. I have endless ideas and dreams for the future, and it is just an absolute honor to be able to wake up every day and do this work, honestly. I can definitely say that my overall inspiration is clearly my 3 children, because I would have missed out on so much if they would have never entered my life.
I can relate to that. Thank you. With adoption number one, we went with the traditional adoption agency. With adoption number two, we became experts, heavily lined with sarcasm, but we did explore a step ahead adoption. So, can you explain some of the differences between adoption agencies and consulting companies?
Yeah, one of the biggest differences is going to be the services offered, obviously. An agency is most likely going to offer a one-stop shop. They will provide home study services, legal, and obviously matching services. A consultant is going to offer support, education, and guidance throughout the entire adoption process. Consultants are also going to aid in matching by the use of referrals. When you are working with an agency, you are most likely going to be getting exposure to expectant moms that are in the area of your agency. Some agencies do cast a broader net, but not all of them. When you work with a consultant, you're most likely going to be exposed to expectant mom cases from various adoption friendly states, which in theory would lead you to being matched quicker. ASA offers a more personal experience by having the family work with an adoption coach from start to finish. When a family decides to sign on and work with ASA, they are connected with their adoption coach first thing, and their coach is going to be there with them all the way up until they finalize their adoption. It may even extend past that point. Andy, you and your husband, you have already finalized your adoption, and here we are. We still have some type of relationship. We are still communicating with each other. And I also, have things like that with other clients I've worked with in the past, that they have kind of just become friends, and I enjoy checking in on them and watching their little ones grow. So, overall, a coach does build a relationship with their family that they're working with. And that also kind of just makes the family feel like they have more people in their corner that they're being supported by on their journey. Most families do say that they appreciate having a coach throughout their adoption journey, because an agency's main focus is going to be supporting the expectant mom throughout her journey, as it should be. But it is also nice when a family can, lean on the coach that they're working with to be their main support and not have to rely so heavily on the agency involved.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't share. So I've worked with 2 agencies and a step ahead. And I will say with the first agency, there tends to be a little, maybe a little frustration, because I can say that, because it was just a touch base once a month, and just a waiting game. My second agency, awesome. She great, but she was also really close to retirement, and I couldn't really make her move any quicker. So, like there was that. Just,
Yep.
can you reply to the email I sent you a week ago? But I never experienced any of that with a step ahead. In fact, as soon as I started working with you, Valerie, I felt like the communication was something that I hadn't experienced yet in the adoption world. And then as soon as we were ready to go, we were having very valuable conversations about birth moms that were presenting. And that just wasn't something that I had with agency work. So I really appreciate that. And I think that added value to that relationship building that you get with consultants.
Definitely. Yeah.
What are some misconceptions about adoption consultants versus agencies?
Yes, this is a great question, because there are a lot out there. I have thought of a few that I do want to share. One of the biggest things being the cause of confusion for some people, I think, is, you know, does a consultant company do the home study, or, who's going to take care of the home study process? So to make that very clear, consultants do not provide home study services. We refer our families to trusted home study providers within their state. That way that they can connect with that home study provider, get that whole process rolling. Because, we work with families in various states, and each state, has different laws that they have to follow, different guidelines. And so, home studies are going to vary. And we also do not have a coach in every single state. I mean, that'd be awesome if we did and could expand on that. But now we just rely on those trusted providers to work with those families for the home study process. Another big thing is how we receive cases. Some people have come to me with the impression that we receive situations from agencies that no one else wanted, and that just simply isn't the case. We have many wonderful agencies and attorneys that we work with on a regular basis, and they do come straight to us with any new expectant mom cases that they're working with. Other times, we could be receiving a case from an agency that also has a small list of families that they're working with. However, they reach out to us because the expectant mom is wanting multiple profiles to review, and they may not have enough profiles on their own. There are also instances where an agency is working with a mom who has specific wants. These wants are typically centered around race or location of a family. So then that agency is reaching out to us in hopes that we have a family that meets that criteria, because a lot of times they do not have one that meets all the wants of the mom. I also receive questions of, once we are matched, do we then start working with the agency and stop working with ASA? And the answer is no on that. The agency is going to become another key person that's involved, but ASA will continue to provide education and support throughout the match and post placement. Once a family is matched, the coach's role does change quite a bit. At that time, the coach is going to start preparing the family to potentially have conversations with the expectant mom. They'll help the family understand their place when it comes to the birth of the baby and how, they should act and not act. And they will also be available to the family 24/7 as they travel to take placement of their child. There can sometimes be questions, issues, or challenges that come up in the weeks leading up to the birth, as well as the days following. So we want to be there to help our families through those moments of uncertainty. So when we receive news that a family is traveling to take placement of their baby, their coach is going to be checking in on them. The family's going to know that, hey, if it's 2 a.m. and you're having a major issue or have questions about what you're supposed to be doing at that time, you're going to be able to call your coach and she's going to answer the phone and talk you through it.
Awesome. And again, just speaking from personal experience, that is all true. So thank you, Valerie, for all of your support with our little Harper.
Yeah. Yeah. You
How
guys were
did your
definitely, you and John were definitely kind of self-sufficient. Just because it wasn't your first adoption, it was your second go around. And we definitely do, see families that kind of have that experience. But I'm glad that you still felt like you could always reach out to me if questions or concerns came up.
one? It was kind of nice too, because I felt like you and Bryce and John and I were all going through it together.
We were NICU life, everything.
Yeah, yeah, that was fun. Okay, how has your personal experience with the adoption process shaped your approach as a consultant?
Obviously, no adoption story is the same, and my family is living proof of that. I've experienced 3 very different journeys to adoption, and I'm still living those different experiences now and will forever be. Everything from race, relationships, exposures, and just overall parenting. Each of my children has a different story and, have different needs that are going to shape them for their lives. Because of this, there have been a lot of times where one of our families experiences something that is hard for them to understand, or, they just are beside themselves and don't really know what to do next in the whole process. And I am able to talk them through it and relate to them because I've most likely been there. Having 3 different adoption stories, makes you very well versed on all the different circumstances that can come up. And the same goes for all of our coaches at ASA. They all have their own experiences with adoption, and that comes in very useful when they are relating to their families they're working with. I also know how it feels to be a waiting family, and I believe in full transparency and know that communication is key. Because of this, I do my very best to share our stats of cases and matches and such, at least on a quarterly basis, if not more often. I share that with all of our families. It's not only a good refresher for them, but it also keeps everything in perspective as they're going through the journey. And as far as communication goes, I do my very best to stay on top of case activity. So when a family submits to a case, I'm constantly following up with that adoption provider so we can then share the outcome with those families. So they're not left wondering, they're not left hanging. I know firsthand how difficult it is to submit to a case and then be on pins and needles waiting to hear if you've been chosen or not. So as soon as I am notified of the mom's decision, I turn around and share that news with the coaches, who in turn let the families know. That way, if the family isn't chosen, they can go ahead and close that chapter, move on to the next one, start getting excited about the next case.
I think you just shared a lot. There's a couple of things I just want to really emphasize. One is, if anyone out there is anything like me, those stats are just so helpful and transparent for me. Like, I remember asking my adoption agency, how many birth families are you working with? How many adoptive parents, right? Like, I like to just see what my
Mhm.
odds are. So I really appreciated those stats. And you mentioned a little bit about like substance exposure, and I know I'm going to get to this at the end, but that's like just a little teaser for next month's podcast where we'll discuss substance exposure and mental health. So thank you for working that in.
Mm.
What is the most rewarding part of working as a consultant?
Yeah, I feel like this is a very loaded question for me, just because there are so many different rewards that come with it. And I am dead serious about that. It is just so exciting to be able to do this every day. We get the privilege of walking alongside a family throughout their entire adoption journey. Some families come to us from the very beginning, and we get to see them through literally every step and watch them grow and evolve as they learn more about adoption. It's so exciting to, do that initial phone call with a family to, I mean, they're kind of essentially interviewing me, deciding if they want to work with ASA. And a lot of times they have a lot of questions, because there are so many different avenues you could take with adoption. And so I think that families do appreciate it when I narrow it down for them and just be transparent, explain the different opportunities that they could have, no matter if it is a agency or consultant company. I explain the difference between all of it and what the pluses and minuses are. But it's so fun to, see a family in the beginning. They have all these questions, they're uncertain about a lot of things. And then they decide to work with us. They start taking advantage of all the education and resources we offer. And it's just crazy what they end up learning, how they transform as individuals. And they really start thinking differently and definitely start thinking more like adoptive parents and what they are going to be able to do for their adopted kiddos. It's also a gift to be able to be the one to submit a family's profile for an expectant mom case and advocate for them. Yes, it is hard to be the one to continually tell a family that they weren't chosen, but it sure makes up for it when we get to be the one to make that call to the same family and tell them that they've been chosen after, so many no's or for waiting for so long. We also have families that come to us after working with someone else for a year, 2 years, or even 3 years. And it's super fun to be able to give those clients renewed hope in the process and encourage them to keep going. That phone call to tell them that they've been chosen is like top tier exciting. It's really just a true gift to be able to work in this field. And, families look to us for guidance and really trust us. And that isn't something that we take lightly.
Well, I know there's a lot of pros and cons when you're making those phone calls, but I can, being on the receiving end, I know that those are very joyous occasions when you get to deliver the good news. So I love that. What are the financial advantages and disadvantages of using a consultant versus an agency?
So, on this question, I'm going to preface it with this is my opinion. There are, many different advantages, disadvantages out there, and this is kind of just most commonly what I see. So, in my opinion, using some type of consultant is going to be more bang for your buck. Because with an agency, you could potentially be putting your eggs all in one basket. With ASA, a family pays our service fee up front and then doesn't have any other expenses due until they get matched with an expectant mom. At that point, they would be responsible for any fees that the agency is requiring. And, as they move throughout that match, pay whatever fees it is that needs to be paid. It is a huge perk for families to be able to see multiple cases from multiple adoption providers and also be able to submit their profile to those cases without having to pay any additional fees. Each consultant does things a little bit differently when it comes to that. So that is going to be a great point for a family to ask when interviewing different consulting companies.
Great answer. We're not done with this question. So I will say that certainly when I was the first, right, we worked with an agency first time. We only knew the one agency. The second time we worked with another agency. And one of the very, very important pieces that we were exploring was what does it look like financially? And so that is how we started that second relationship with our second agency. Consultants, it scared me because I thought it was a very large fee, right? When I hear, I have all these conversations with all these agencies, and this one's like, oh, it's only $19,000 upfront just to be, a client of ours. So money scared me, and consultant just sounds expensive. So I know prices change, but as of today, March 27th, 2025, what is a Step Ahead's price?
Yeah, very good question. So as of right now, we charge an upfront service fee of $4,200, and that is good for a 1-year contract. And so, with that contract, a family is going to get access to their adoption coach, as well as all of the resources and education we offer. And then, like I said, they are also going to be able to review those cases we receive and submit to them without any extra fees. And I do completely understand where you're coming from too with that, because, this is why I say it's such a loaded question. Because, all agencies do it a little bit differently, and it works great for some families because, I think kind of what you're meaning is, yeah, you saw this $19,000 price tag up front, and then you most likely were going to be making payments after that, kind of in short little installments. And yes, I mean, that does look a lot better compared to, when a family interviews a consultant, we give our upfront price. And then we get into like a case cost detail. And to kind of just share that, the average case cost that we see is about anywhere from 45 to 55,000. That's the average range. Obviously, yes, it can go higher than that, and yes, it can go lower than that. But just throwing that $55,000 price tag out there, that seems very, very overwhelming to a family when they are looking at all their options. So I totally get that.
Yeah, my home study costs more than the consulting fee. So again, I needed to make sure that everyone heard that because I was under the impression consultant expensive, and that wasn't the case at all. So thank you for entertaining that extra question.
Yeah.
What type of families or individuals benefit most from working with an adoption consultant?
So I'm obviously biased when it comes to this type of question because I think that every family would benefit from working with a consultant. But I do always tell potential clients that they need to do their research and decide on the adoption professional that feels is going to fit their needs the best, whether that be an individual agency or some type of consultant, not just ASA. There is a perfect fit for every individual. When you're trying to make that decision as a family, they should be looking at the resources available, the number of cases available, the history of the ethics, and the overall interactions that they have with that professional and how that professional makes them feel. Uh, Obviously, single individuals, same sex couples, and families with several children can sometimes be harder to match. And so, because of this, I do feel that these types of families really benefit from using a consultant because they are going to be able to cast a wider net and most likely get connected quicker with an expectant mom that has been looking for someone just like them.
Yeah, I think the first part of your answer was spot on. Everybody, right? I think we talk about like increasing our odds and casting a wider net, being a
Mhm.
bit more informed and engaged in what the process and selection process looks like. I don't think it hurts anyone from working with a consultant in addition to the agency they may be considering.
Yep.
What ethical considerations should prospective adoptive parents be aware of when choosing between agency and consultant? And I know that not all consultants and agencies are the same, but just overarching.
Yeah. So, no matter who a family decides to work with, they should always be asking questions about birth mom services and support. This is going to include counseling, both pre and post adoption, how money is being handled and distributed, what type of housing is provided if need be, and how they are setting up the mom for success post placement. Are they getting her into stable housing? Are they helping her budget? And are they providing her with the necessary mental health and postpartum services that she needs? All of this is obviously going to depend on the wishes of the mom, because, at the end of the day, it's always her say in what she wants support with, what she wants help with, and what she doesn't. Um, and if she is willing to accept that help, it's important to know all the resources that they are going to offer her if she does accept.
Perfect. Can you share a memorable success story of a family you helped that might not have been possible through agency?
Yeah, definitely. I have so many stories that I could share, but a really big one that will forever stick with me was a family that traveled to take placement of their baby. And unfortunately for that family, the mom did decide to parent her child, which was a great decision for her. She made the best decision for her and her child, but was very unfortunate for that family. As all that was playing out on one side of things, we had another family who was traveling to that same state to take placement of their baby. And long story short, that family ultimately decided not to go through with the placement. And yes, that is shocking and
Mm.
hard to understand, but it all comes back to what I said at the beginning of this episode about how there is a bigger picture being formed that we can't see. Because, these two families were working with different adoption agencies, and the only thing that connected everyone together was ASA. The only way we knew about both these instances was because we were the main factor involved. When I got the call informing me that the family walked away and a new family would needed to be there within the next 24 hours because baby was ready to be discharged from the hospital, my mind went straight to that other family that was currently experiencing a lot of unknowns in their match. And they also happened to be, in driving distance, just a couple hours away. So I called that family's adoption coach and asked if they ended up taking placement. She told me that they hadn't and that they were planning to travel back home the following day. So I'm sure you all are putting two and two together here, but the family that was heartbroken about their adoption failure wasn't in the right place for the baby that they thought they would take placement of, but they were definitely in the right place and had the perfect timing for the baby that was meant to be theirs. They drove a couple hours to the hospital where that other baby was located, and the following morning, they actually ended up taking placement of that precious little baby that was waiting for them all along. They would have never known about that baby if it weren't for the fact that they were working with us. And, I just love stories like that, because each adoption has one. It is just so fun to look back at each family's journey and see all the different little things that added up to get them to where they are now. Looking back on each of my adoption experiences, literally every decision that my husband and I made led us straight to our children. Sometimes it was a rocky road getting there. There was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of curves, but literally every conversation we had, every move we made, it got us to our end ultimate goal of where we were supposed to be. So obviously nothing happens by accident. It's all planned out. It's all fate, destiny, whatever you'd like to call it. It's just so fun to see each family have an experience like that, because they ultimately do.
And we can say that because we're on the other side, right? We have our
Exactly,
beautiful little
yes.
babies. But again, comparing agency versus consultant, I will say it was much more exciting working with you as a consultant and a coach, because again, these were conversations that we were having, whereas with agency, and I'm very blessed to have worked with agencies I did, there's a lot of waiting and a lot of like, do I go on vacation or do I not? Do I, I don't know, like what to do with life. I just felt like I was standing still, whereas there was a lot more engagement and conversation with a step ahead. So I definitely appreciated that.
Okay.
Well, as always, Valerie, today's conversation has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we hope everyone enjoyed another informative podcast episode for Step Ahead Adoption Services. Remember, and I think that you really hit this one really hard, Valerie, so thank you. Adoption is not just a process, it's a journey filled with love, resilience, and hope. Don't forget to be on the lookout for next month's podcast, in which we'll talk to Dr. Silvestri, and we'll discuss substance exposure and mental health facts. And in the meantime, if you'd like to learn anything more about a Step Ahead Adoption Services, visit their website, www.stepaheadadoption.com. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.